Before I do the Black in Mexico video and give an overview of my entire trip, I wanted to first show a few clips that shows I was in Mexico. This clip right here is southern Mexico. This clip is central Mexico. I was on a bus, which I will cover the entire process of entering the border and going down to the Guatemala/Mexico border. In this clip, I was in Mexico City on the bus, which looks just like LA. You know, I talk about that in another video, which you will find in the description box. And in this video clip is the beautiful, peaceful place of Oaxaca. So let's get started. Yo, people wanted me to do a Black in Mexico video for a while, so I guess I'm gonna do the Black in Mexico video since I'm in the mood of doing it. Um, I entered Mexico through the bus, through Laredo, Texas, and the conflict that I experienced was mostly on this side of the border, because automatically I'm on a bus, border patrol come on a bus, they start making an announcement in Spanish, but when they look back at me, they stop their announcement and they automatically came back to me and started questioning me, asking me where I'm going, asking me if I'm on a run. They wanted to see my passport. They indicated that maybe my passport was fake because I didn't have any stamps and it was my first time using it. They were saying that I might be on a run. They was checking my bag to see if I had any guns. They was asking everything about my personal life, you know. Then when they realized that I wasn't their stereotypical drug dealer, they thought in their minds, then they was like, man, you know, Mexico's real dangerous. Shouldn't go down there. If anything happened, go to the American embassy. And I think at that time they possibly put my name, because they took my passport back to their area, and they possibly put my name on a watch list. Because every time I travel now, when I come back, I always get pulled over to secondary inspection. So, you know, it is what it is because I ain't carrying nothing. So they could spend their time checking me, whereas the opioid addiction is getting stronger because the people who's really carrying it over, they ain't checking. So, you know, if you black and you crossing that border, be aware that maybe the Customs and Border Patrol are gonna check you leaving the country. It might not happen every time, but yeah, I say expect it, you know. Now, when I entered the Mexico border, it did look like a war zone. I ain't gonna even lie. Nuevo Laredo looked like a war zone. Crossed at night around 11 p.m. And there was nobody outside. I'm talking about the streets were deserted. Seemed like two dudes in front of a store. And you can see the Mexican police driving around with their lights flashing all night. But when I initially entered the border, the Mexican police or border guards on the other side was actually real nice. You know, they was real helpful. Everybody was speaking in Spanish, so if you don't know Spanish, you're gonna have a problem. Luckily, there was another American guy who was able to translate everything they were saying. It was like, put your bags. Ooh, excuse me, put your bags over here, put your bags over there. I did it. So, um, now I took the bus from Nuevo Laredo down to Monterey, and I had to get my bus changed over in Monterey. Now, when I got to Monterey, there was a few people looking at me with surprise, like, what are you doing down here, But the bus I was on was mostly empty. But that bus station, there's a lot of people in there, and the wall where the bus station, the wall surrounding the bus station had broken glass on the top of it. I don't know what that was about, but I heard down in Mexico they be kidnapping people, where the cartels be kidnapping people from the bus stations. So I'm assuming they sometimes jump over that wall. So there was broken glass all on the top of the wall surrounding the building, so nobody could jump over it. So it was protected in a sense. By the time we left Monterey, we was going down to San Luis Potosi or something like that. I might be mispronouncing it. And the road there was actually beautiful. I got videos of it. The road there was actually very, very beautiful. I mean, Looked like Florida somewhere, man. You see the little palm trees or whatever. Now, when we pulled over to a rest stop, coincidentally, there was a coroner's van, and this was like early in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning or something like that. There was a coroner's van just in the parking lot, so I'm like, okay, it's real down here. Before I went to Mexico, I had some Mexican homeboys who I knew that told me that you would see severed heads just laying on the ground in Mexico. I didn't see that because I was mostly on the bus. Like I said, I took it from Nuevo Laredo down Monterey, and eventually to Mexico City. So it was cool. Also, I forgot to tell you that outside of um, Nuevo Laredo, they have checkpoints, and you can't tell if it's a cartel or a police because the police dress like regular people out there, and the army got those assault rifles, but nobody is really wearing any identification on them, so you can't really tell who's who. And they came back to me and they were speaking in Spanish. They didn't know any English, and I'm assuming they was asking me where are you going, and I had a hotel voucher for a hotel in Guatemala that I purchased on eBay. So I showed them that, and they kind of was looking at it, and we didn't really communicate. They kind of just put their flashlight in my bag, and that was it. They just got off the bus. They checked of course, they checked my passport, but then they got off the bus. And also, when you enter Mexico, they're gonna give you a card, and you got to keep that card when you leave. So, eventually, I get to Mexico City at the no. I get the Querétaro. Now, in that bus station, I had my hoodie on, my blue hoodie on, and police were looking at me kind of weird, like they wanted to get some money out of me or something. I don't know. But eventually, I go outside, and I met this bus station staff who was from Indiana. Me and him was having a conversation, and he helped me out, and I gave him a tip. And he was like, no, you don't have to give me a tip. I gave him a tip. Then I gave him another tip. And that's when he was like, putting in his sliding in his pocket and was like, oh, everybody was kind of looking. So I don't know. I don't know what that was about. I don't know if I should have did that or if I made him a target by giving him money because now everybody knows he got money or what. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna lay off for giving tips in Mexico. Okay, you know. In that town, also when I was at the bus station, there was a dude kind of like sitting next to me on the stair, and he sparked up a conversation with me. Me and him was talking. He spoke English, and we was just talking. He had on some brand new J's, some Nikes. I'm like, okay, we just kept on talking. We started talking about the political situation in America, and then he brought up, drugs and whatever. I was like, I'm not really involved in that, so yeah. So and then like in Mexico, there's multiple bus systems. The bus systems down there are way better than a bus system up here. They got most. I mean, the buses play music. They're comfortable. They give you snacks. The seats let back, and I mean, they're just real comfortable. There ain't that many people on them, and whatever. And we in certain cities, if your bus, let's say your bus, let's say you have a ticket for a specific bus company, and that bus is coming 3 hours from now. You may have another bus company who will pick you up. That's what happened to me in Querétaro. They'll mark your ticket, take it, and they will take you to Mexico City. And in Querétaro, I seen like thick females that look like black females up here, and it was kind of beautiful, in Querétaro. It kind of reminded me of Chicago to a certain degree, and at that bus station, I seen a bunch of little dudes. They was like little high school dudes. I'm like, okay, they look kind of thuggish. They was Hispanic dudes, but they look kind of, they got on the same bus I was on, but everything was good. I think they was coming from school or something. I don't know. But what's funny is that I seen a true to the game Mexican guy. I'm talking about he was like brown skin. He had on the sombrero hat. I mean, he was real Mexican. I heard him talking Spanish on the Greyhound bus up here, and I coincidentally saw him down there. So when I arrived to Mexico City, Mexico City bus station has metal detectors. And before you get on the bus, they warn you. And the security dude kept on telling me, like, no, amigo, I don't speak English. Stop speaking English. I don't speak English. I don't understand. I'm like, okay, man, I'm sorry. Stop speaking English. You know. So I got on the bus and yeah. Um in southern Mexico. Now, when I went through Oaxaca, I like Oaxaca. The energy and vibe of Oaxaca was real peaceful. You got the smoke in the background and just the natural, landscape, and it just had a peaceful vibe, man. I couldn't really explain it. And Oaxaca, that's where a lot of the indigenous people are. The Indian, dark skinned, brown skinned Mexicans are. And yeah, Oaxaca was good. Now, I forgot the name of the state that's south of Oaxaca. Now, in that state, because I took the ADO bus from Mexico City down to Tapachula. Now, in this state, is it Chapayas? Chapals? I can't. It start with a C. So we're going through there, and before I went to Mexico, I used to read stories about how cartels kidnap people on the bus, and sometimes the bus drivers be in on it, so they would turn off on a side road and start going in the middle of nowhere. So I'm just sitting back, relaxing, enjoying everything. All of a sudden, the bus turn off on a side road. Automatically, I get scared. I'm like, oh snap. But the bus driver turned off on the side road so he can get to another main road to another bus station in that city. So it was okay. Okay. Now, the closer to the Guatemala border I got, the quote unquote worse they got. Okay. The federales came on a bus. No, no. First, the army guys came on a bus because they got multiple checkpoints in that state. Not in Oaxaca, but the state that's south of Oaxaca. I can't think of the name right now. Chapayas, something like that. And the army came on a bus. They was just checking random bags. They got their assault rifles over them. They're little dudes as well. I had on my hoodie. I was just chilling. They didn't say nothing. They didn't say nothing to me. I was looking out the window at the time. I wasn't trying to look at them. And some miles down the road, there's another checkpoint. This time the federales come on. Federales automatically come over to me, asking me for my passport or whatever. He saw my money that was in the, that was in my passport. He looked like he wanted to take it. He saw my little white card, and he started patting my shorts. I had on shorts. I had on my blue hoodie and some blue jean shorts. Patting my shorts, and he could feel my comb. Now, guns are illegal in Mexico. I'm assuming that he thought it was a weapon. So he pointed at it like, you know, I took the comb out and it was all good. So he gave my stuff back and that was it. But his energy was kind of standoffish. I heard stories about the federales and I see why they had the reputation they have. Also, when I was on that bus, I had to use the washroom, man, and I went in the washroom and I forgot to lock the door, and I was turned around and my wee wee was out, and this indigenous lady, she was an elderly lady, she opened the door, she was like, you know, had my wee wee out or whatever, man. Felt so dirty, but it is what it is. Yeah. As I stated in previous videos, that Guatemala Mexico border is no freaking joke. It's no joke down there, man. That border, there's no definitive border. So any and everybody is walking past. Guatemala's coming into Mexico, Mexico coming into Guatemala. So for all the people saying that Mexico has a border at Guatemala, no, they don't. They ain't got no border down there, dude. And you just see people freely walking past. Now, the moment I get off the bus I was on disappeared. Okay. Also, when I got down to Tapachula, I had to take another bus to the actual border, and in that bus station, it was cool down there, but they had a lot of security guards up in there. Had a lot of security guards. There's one thing in Mexico you're gonna see. You're gonna see a lot of security guards. So now at the border, I get off the bus. The bus done disappeared. All of a sudden, a bunch of dudes like, "Hey man, hey man, I'm like, "Hey man, where I gotta go?" He was like, up here, follow me, follow me." That's when the other guy came up to me and was like, passport." I was like, "What, you police or something?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm police. Get my passport." And dude was like, "Oh, so how much, $20? How much you got?" I'm like, "I got no money, man. I'll have $20 for you, man. I got $20 in pesos, shoot." you know. Yeah, but eventually he gave me my passport back. And when I go to the Mexican immigration center to get my exit stamp, it was cool. I had, like I said before, I had to give the lady the card that I was given at the border, and got my exit stamp, and I left. And you only see one border guard with a big old shotgun just standing there. Just one border guard down there. And no gate to divide their border. So when I got to the Guatemala side, I didn't know about the immigration center at the time. So these dudes are still following me. And all the other dudes break away. So there's only two dudes with me. And the one guy was like, "Hey, immigration center." So I go to the Guatemala immigration center, and she serviced me real quick, bam. But she asked me for some quesos. She was kind of nervous when she was saying it, but I heard that they would do this. I think she asked me for 20 or 10 quesos. 10 quesos, transaction done. Eyes all big. I'm like, "Okay, there you go." She's official. So down on that border, anybody official asking you for anything, you give it to them, man. But all these other dudes, forget them. But as I stated in other videos, I felt like my free will was given up because those dudes was around me. They could have did anything they want to me. You know what I'm saying? And it's they didn't really do the white Americans like that, so I don't know if they was attracted to me simply because I was black. But the white Americans that I seen, they didn't have people surrounding them like that, so I don't know what that was about. So yeah, so eventually, after going to Guatemala and going to Belize, I entered Mexico again. Okay, now this time I entered at the Belize border, and when I entered Mexico this time, um, that border, like I said, is really no definitive border. On that bridge, they got like an area where you gotta cross, but like, okay, when I entered the border, I saw a Mexican army dude, but he was on his phone. He had his big gun, but he was on his phone like he didn't really care. And the lady who was sitting at the desk, she didn't really care. I put my bag down. I was ready for them to search me. All she did was unzip my bag, open my bag, look in it. She didn't even move anything, just look in it. It was like, "Okay, you can go." Like they didn't even care, man. Then when I get to the Mexican, the actual immigration counter, in like this enclosed area, they was back there watching TV, relaxing. They weren't even doing that. I'm like, "Excuse me, need some help." So that's when she gave me the card. I had to fill it out myself. Unlike at the border, they filled out everything for me, from what I remember. Yeah, but I had to fill out this card myself, and eventually, I get a bus to Cancun. And the bus was real cheap. I can't remember how much it cost, but it was no money. So, I slept that entire way, by the way. I was all the way in the back. I slept that entire way. So when I get to Cancun, as I said before, you see the Mexican police riding around with their lights on. Eventually, I get to the airport and I chill at the airport. I chill at the airport for like fucking 16 hours from what I remember. I apologize for cursing, but yeah, for 16 hours from what I remember. And one thing I did kind of experience a little bit when I actually got my ticket and went upstairs, They got drug dogs that go around the airport. You can see the federale dude with a little, I don't know what type of dog it was. It was little as hell though, and he kind of, you know, ran him past me a little bit, then ran past me again. But but other than that, nah. But overall, from what I experienced personally, Mexico was, you could just tell something is going on down there. Especially is just one town near San Luis Potosi that, I mean, it looked like a war zone, man. You could just see the Mexican police riding around. The police officer, he was on the back, just, he was staring at me. I was staring at him as the van just kept going, off in the distance. And, you see it was just a dirty town. Not all the towns are like that down there, but yeah. So those was my experience in Mexico. People asked me about it, so I decided to do a long 20-minute video about it, talking about nothing. So yeah, man. So you black in Mexico, just be aware that your experience may not be like mine. Go to Cancun, call it a day. Just go to Cancun, call it a day. You feel me? Don't go to Acapulco, nothing like that. Maybe Mazatlan, maybe Tijuana. You'll be okay. And don't mix with those Mexican police or the Mexican federales, because sometimes low key they do be cartel. So that's it. Peace.